Hello again. Welcome to another video that I'm going to do about a match that we had in the North Staffordshire Chess League. It was the Open Cup final between Alsager and Crewe. Across Staffordshire we have three chess leagues. We have the North Staffordshire League, the Cannock Chess League and also the Wolverhampton League. Staffordshire is quite a big place, so therefore kind of split between North and South. I think that Stafford play in both leagues because they're kind of in the middle. We're going to be showing you one of the games from the matches on Tuesday and just taking you through what actually happened with it. It used to be a really big event, the cup matches, because it used to be over 8 boards. It's since reduced down to 6. I think that's due to the number of players that we've had playing, and a few things have changed since COVID as well. So in the leagues, for example, we don't actually have promotion and relegation. We have it based on ratings. But I'll show you what the pairings are. I play for Alsager. And you're going to see what happened in this match, and also something that you can learn from one of the games today. So first of all, the previous winners of the cup were Crewe. They beat us last season in the Open Cup final, and they brought a very strong team again. So you can see the names there and the average ratings. So I played board 1 for Alsager. I was up against Richard Lee, and Richard's been an opponent that I've played many times now over the past few years. He's actually a really strong player. He's beaten me in a game and drawn with me. In FIDE rated matches as well, he beat me, which is really annoying because I've beaten him in league matches and get the ECF rating points, but the one that I really want is the FIDE rated points. So he's beaten me in one of those games, which is really annoying. So he's a really strong player. Has got a lot of travelling to do though, so he's been up against it this season. Down on board 2, you can see that we had Simon Hood against Lee Farrington. That's one of the more level matchups, both with a similar rating. I played Lee actually only a few weeks ago, and he's a really strong player. I had to work really hard to get the win in that game. And then you can see here of these next few boards, we tend to be a little bit outrated for our side in Alsager. So we got on board 3 John Booth, who's very solid. Rated 1869 against Fadfa Bartos, or Bart as he's called. He's rated over 2000. Camel Zach's also rated over 2000. He's playing against a returning player from many years ago in Julian Kirk O'Grady. And really that's kind of like our middle order. They're really solid, both John and Julian are. We're up against 2, I would say, younger players in Bart and Camel. The match on board 5 actually kind of dictated what colours I was definitely going to choose. So we've got Greg Cannon, who I hope he doesn't mind me calling him a bit of a loose cannon, because we don't know what we're going to get from Greg. We're either going to get absolute genius, or we're going to get not genius, depending on how he plays. And I really hope that we see his game sometime, because he played against Harry Gardner, and this was a matchup from a league match early in the season where they played exactly the same colours. Alsager won the toss, and I chose white on board 1 because that meant that Greg had white against Harry again, and their game from last time was fantastic, so I wanted to see that a repeat of that variation. On board 6 we had Alan Thompson, who's our normal league captain, and he was up against Martin Burns. Pretty sure that Martin could play a little higher up if he wanted to, but he was the captain for Crewe. And it was actually my dad who was the captain for Alsager, who was a non-playing captain. You look at the average ratings, there's only literally 55 points in it, which is not very much at all. Of course, the difference though is that Crewe have more strength and depth, so they've got more solidity down in their rating orders, whereas my rating's quite high compared to the rest, so therefore we're a little bit weighted towards 1 or 2 boards, which could put us as a slight underdog going into the match. But to be honest, anything could happen. I think the one thing that's worthwhile saying is that we get on really well with Crewe, and actually it's a really good rivalry that's been come about. Crewe actually won the league last season. They won the league and the cup. I think was it the season before that. I think we won the cup and we won the league and they won the cup as well. So maybe I'm getting confused, but I mean it's been a real good kind of rivalry that's quite friendly. Some of our players sometimes turn up to their club, and it's really good to see their club flourishing with all the work that the team's doing there. They've also got quite a number of other players that could easily fit into here as well, that are rated around 1900 or even close to that, because they've got 3 teams in Division 1 which is over 4 boards. So they've got plenty of players that can slot in to make themselves a little bit stronger. Okay, well, starting off with the match, what actually happened? Well, let me just hide that for a second. So at the start, Richard Lee was a little bit late, so I didn't start his clock. He had quite a long way to travel, but the rest of the matches got off okay. And actually, it was on Tuesday night when Arsenal were playing against Real Madrid, and unfortunately, our home matches are played in a cricket club. And part of me actually quite likes hearing the fact that the football's literally on the other side of the door. But if you were watching that match, I think there was quite a few interesting goals that went in, so there was quite some screaming throughout that one. But I'm going to show you a game here that actually happened on board 2, and it was actually Simon Hood was playing black against Lee Farrington. Sorry, Lee, first of all. I think that you're a really good player, but it was really interesting, this game, because it actually followed one of the same opening that's happening in the Women's World Championship on the same day, and that was the Sicilian Khan variation, which goes like this. So here we have the Sicilian, and after e6, this is kind of determining what type of Sicilian it is. It can still transpose to many other different ones, but usually it's the Taimanov or the Khan that they're going for, which is usually stuff like a6 and Queen c7 at different times. Lee chooses to do the open Sicilian, which is quite normal. And here, actually, I'm starting to get out of theory, because knight c6, we've got the Taimanov, and it looks all pretty normal to me. And I would be expecting here that Lee as white would have his own variation that he plays against this. It's quite a common line for black, so I'm assuming he knows what he's doing. He didn't play the main move here, which is just to simply develop the knight, which makes a lot of sense to me. But he chose to take on c6, which I thought was quite a little bit unusual. And this kind of just helps black bring a pawn towards the centre of the board. So already it's just starting to go a little bit of an interesting opening tree, shall we say, from white's perspective. Because if you have a look at the percentages from here on the big database, black's scoring pretty heavily. Now here, if I'm white, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I'm just going to flip the board around for a second. And I'm going to just think about it. If you didn't know what the theory was, what would you play? And the way that I'm seeing it is, well, I just want to get my king castled. This knight's probably going to go to this square. I don't probably want to move this dark square bishop just yet, because the pawn on b2 might come under attack. And maybe I can just get castle kingside and just keep it simple. So maybe put this bishop on probably d3 or maybe on e2. If I wanted to be more aggressive, then I'd start with this knight coming out, and then I'd move this bishop somewhere like f4 to try and just eye up this d6 square, move my queen forward 1 square and castle queenside. That's obviously inherently more risky, because we've literally just opened up the b file for our opponent, which we didn't need to do. So I would have been thinking in that way, but I would not have played the move g3 at all here. I don't know why. Whether this was a prepared line or something like that, this just doesn't seem to make much sense. The bishop can already be developed in one direction, so unless there's a massive benefit for developing it to this g2 square, I just wouldn't have chosen that. And okay, it hits the pawn. Maybe it's playing against this pawn coming to d5, but I don't think you're ever really stopping that from happening. And as long as you get castle quickly here, I think you'll be fine. But the big problem is that black now plays. Well, hang on, let me just flip the board around. So what would you play here as black? We'll look at it from black's point of view from this move going forward. So what would you play as black here? Pause the video if you're watching and just have a quick think. It only takes about 30 seconds maximum. What would you do? What would your instinct be to play? And the reason why I wanted to show you this game wasn't because I want to gloat in somebody's win. It's more because it links in with one of the videos I did only a week or so ago from the Chess Masters series, where an early move was played, and it was like getting the piece out which could already be developed. Here this bishop could have already been developed on this diagonal, and it was chosen to go to g2, which is why at this point the black would play bishop a6, and all of a sudden, well, you can't castle anymore because the bishop is covering this square on f1, which is really annoying and really quite simple to find as well if you're looking for that kind of move. The bishop's doing a fantastic job there. And so now I think white has kind of like a choice, or it has to kind of choose to go queenside, or he has to choose to fight against this bishop. Okay, some simple development happens, knight c3, queen c7, and now here again we have the same thing happen again. This bishop, this dark square bishop, can easily be developed on any of these squares. In fact, literally any of those squares it can move to. and it has actually, it can move to any of those squares, and it's not badly placed on any of those squares either. Okay, maybe d2 is a little bit pessimistic and defensive, but e3, f4, g5, these are all actually quite aggressive squares. f4 even attacks the queen. E3 is very solid. G5 maybe threatening to double pawns, although I know that in some lines black's not bothered about this. But the move that was chosen by white, which instantly to me just went alarm bells ringing off in my head, was the move b3. And this was this exact same move that appeared in my video that I did for the doubles match that was played, I think, when they had an exchange French, and I think it was Navi and Claire actually playing that, when the dark square bishop could already be developed on this diagonal, but b3 was played to develop here. Now, I'm not saying that the bishop is bad on this square when it comes to b2. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's a nice open diagonal for the bishop, and it would be good. But it's the short-term things that make a big difference. So not only is it taking too long to get this bishop out, so it could have been done in one move, instead of playing b3 and then developing, which takes 2 moves, but also at the same time, this knight on c3 is unguarded. And fair play to Simon, he does a fantastic job here. I didn't analyse it, and I just thought, well, this is just an obvious move to play, so he chucks in bishop b4, attack the knight, pinning it to the king. What more could you want? I mean, straight away, moves like bishop b2 don't really come to mind because your knight is still pinned. This could still cause a lot of problems. So Lee chooses to go bishop d2, maybe realising the error of his ways. This almost feels like it's already a little bit too slow though, and queen e5 comes in, and the knight is under threat straight away. And the problem is that not only is the queen attacking the knight, it's also attacking the pawn on e4, so the knight can potentially take it in some variations later on. The knight can't actually move. Well, it can move. It's just very uncomfortable. So, for example, let's suppose knight e2 gets played, and then we just do bishop takes bishop. You can't actually take it with the queen because the rook on a1 hangs, and that would be game over. A rook down at this level is too much. And so therefore you'd have to take with the king, for example, which is just ridiculous. And not only that, but the e4 pawn falls with check. You have to give your bishop up for it. But all of a sudden, it's because it's taken too long to get the bishops out. The king's not castled, the rooks aren't connected. Therefore, the queen can't come forward because the rook on a1 is hanging. This is a really uncomfortable position for white. And I'm not surprised that actually it ended very quickly after this. He played f4, which looked to make sense to me. And after queen d4, there's still some threats in the air. And now the knight definitely can't move because that same thing happens. But here you don't even have the option of taking with the king because the queen on d4 is done, and after queen takes, you're going to take the rook. But here he plays queen f3, which defends the knight because that's what was under threat. And then the move that was played by black here, I think, was fantastic, by the way, because I was just having a casual look over at the game at this point. I think my game was in its early stages, and I looked at this point, I thought, okay, I'm just doing a bit of calculating here. Can we just take this pawn on e4? This is what I was thinking. Can we just take it? If it was your thought, then fantastic. And after knight takes, we take the rook on a1, so therefore that's okay. With check, of course. And after queen takes knight, we can actually do bishop takes knight c3, which is quite nice, I think. And okay, we've just won a pawn. But no. It's actually a wrong move, and actually I'm really pleased to see that Simon actually employed kind of like something. If you see a good move, look for a better one. I saw knight takes e4, okay, not much of a think, I was still focusing on my own game, but he found the move d5, putting even more pressure on the centre, just wanting to bring more pieces in. Of course, if white takes, I believe that he probably would have taken with the knight now. When the knight is under even more pressure, and there is we are going to do queen takes bishop d2 check as well if the knight moves. So this is or the rook. Take your pick of the pieces that you want to take. So you can't take it. He's threatening now to take with the pawn and hit the queen, with danger. And it's no wonder here that Lee found it really difficult to continue in the game. He just played rook d1, which again in my mind made a lot of sense. The rook was hanging on a1. The knight was pinned to it. The rook on d1 protects the bishop. This makes a lot of sense to me. But after rook d8, which again is another improving move, it wasn't long before, unfortunately, Lee just made a catastrophic blunder And I think it was the pressure though with the position. I don't know if you can call it a blunder when you make that. He plays 92. And stop the video here and just have a look. Can you see how Black finished the game off? And it is just such a good example of how what you think are simple opening moves getting punished early on. Lee's a much better player than this and played much better games. I'm sure he'll be horrified that I've done a video of it. But, well, they'll get us back in the end, and I'll tell you what the results were in a second. Okay, so if you've had a look at the tactic, great, and seen it. If you've not paused the video, so I'm going to show you it now. So bishop takes bishop check, rook takes bishop. A little bit easier now. Queen takes rook check. King takes because we just take this pawn, and we have a discovered check with our rook on d8. And here, white's just going to be a rook down. There's not really any point carrying on at this level, and that was game over. So that gave Alsager a really nice early win. It gave us a lot of hope that we could win this cup off Crewe. Unfortunately, though, as this was happening, lower down the board order, we had unfortunately a crazy game between Greg and Harry that was going on. And unfortunately for Alsager, good for Crewe and Harry. Harry was able to win that one. We also lost the bottom boards with Alan going down to Martin Burns in what I thought he had a good opening, and also we had Julian Cook O'Grady lose to Kamil Zak. So we were 3-1 down at this point. And then not so long after, Bart was pressuring John Booth and he offered him a draw, and I think John was slightly worse and therefore accepted. So Crewe managed to get to 3.5 points. I had to play on for another 15-20 minutes to win my match, but at the end of the day, well done to Crewe. They ran out 3.5, 2.5 winners and retains the cup. Really good game there by Simon. But apart from that, Crewe are currently the champions of the North Staffordshire League, both in the league and also in the Open Cup final as well. So well done to them. Thanks very much for watching the video. I appreciate all the subs and all the likes and everything. It does encourage me to do more. So thanks very much for that, and look out for more in the future. All right.